So here we are, guys. The day after our MUP Frankfurt event.
Right.
Ambush event, where we had 17 players. If you're going to be
pretty good.
pedantic about it. So we did have a couple of dropouts, but I thought 17 was pretty good.
It was great.
Yeah.
And so you guys came down all the way down from Berlin. Obviously a lot of pressure to, have a good... If you go to all that trouble and all that money, you want to have a good time, you know.
We came to visit Frankfurt and incidentally play, right? Oh wait, sorry. We came to see you and then incidentally
entirely
play.
Fair. Fantastic. So we had 3 games of Ambush, and then after we basically said afterwards you can play whatever you like. But actually, I think after 3 games of Ambush, everyone was pretty cooked, weren't they?
Our brains were melting out of our ears.
Yeah, I mean it's always taxing, right? You meet with 3 new people and you play a game, and even if you're not that invested in actually winning the game or anything, it's still always I need to remember how it works and how there's a new army from my opponent,
yes,
a new person to play with. So it's always very entertaining, but also taxing.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, yes, your brain is melting through your ears.
We should say it was a wonderful tournament. You and Andrew did a great job organizing, Chris. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
That was pretty good.
We had quite a funny conversation in the morning. So our friend Lucas, who was also massively helpful for organising the tournament, and he printed out all the awards and everything. He's a really, really great guy. And so Lucas was bringing his laptop specifically because his laptop can connect directly to the internet. Because JD, the store owner, doesn't want to be giving out his
Wi-Fi
internet connection to everyone. So he's like, that's just for me, buddy. So, which is totally fair enough. So I had a conversation with Andrew of, okay, so if the laptop doesn't work, what's our redundancy? And Andrew was like, well, I'll just do it on my phone. I was like, should I bring my laptop? Sorry, dear listener, that's the Amiibo Nintendo alarm clock just telling us, yes. Should I bring my laptop for redundancy? And he was like, well, we have 2 things that would have to go wrong. Do we really need to bring another one? Oh, yeah, fair enough. You're right. So, okay, so we get there. Okay, so what time is Lucas getting here with his laptop? Don't know. Okay, so I call Lucas, and he tells me he's getting there for 3:00. So that's an hour after it was due to start. So, oh, flip. So then, of course, okay, we're going to the redundancy backup option of Andrew's phone. He doesn't have an internet connection. But it's inevitably in these situations...
Yeah.
Technology, right?
Always.
Things, so even if, it's not like we didn't think about this. Yeah. So that did... So we ended up tethering his phone to my phone, which kind of worked, but at some point it dropped. So we had, unfortunately, for the first round, we had a couple of club mates. We had two sets of 2 club mates playing it paired up against each other, which shouldn't have happened had we had an internet connection. We think that was the reason. So we had a couple of errors, and there were a couple of situations where the scores went a bit wrong and Andrew had to fix it. Yeah. But I think with a stable internet connection, it would have worked really well. But it was... I think bless Andrew was there to sort it all out because he was great. Yeah. Otherwise, I'd have been super stressed.
I think Andrew was a bit sick also, and he still made it to the tournament to manage things. I think I'm also thankful to that because it gave me a good win for my game too, because I played against Andrew, and last time we played together it just crushed me. Yeah, and this time it kind of went the other way around. Yeah. Because he was kind of stressed with the tournament and he was also a bit sick, and so my dice were also better, and so I capitalized on this. It's like, sorry and thanks for organizing. But
so it's 1-1.
It's always kind of like this, right? Like it's always something on your mind, like you have to take care of everything going on, and it's always a lot. So even you think, oh, it's just 3 games of Ambush, but it always is a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And,
also, you do feel that responsibility. I mean, we made it as cheap as we possibly could so that cost wouldn't be a factor. So it was €6, and we were very transparent. €3 goes to the store, which is just how much people pay to play in the store for a day anyway, which, let's be honest, is very cheap. And then a nominal fee. And then we took €3 as the Frankfurt Kings.
Yeah.
And pay your next vacation to Malaga. And
big time.
For the yacht.
Big time, yes. Doing that. Yes. Yeah. My pimp chalice. Yeah. I don't really understand what that is. I've just heard people making jokes about a pimp chalice. Anyway, let's move on from the pimp chalice. And
Say it one more time.
so Pim Chalice. So it feels good.
This is Fred reminding you to visit the Kings of War forum, kowforum.com. No ads, no commercials. That's kowforum.com.
The Mantic Universe podcast. So much universe, so little time.
I think at the end of how did your tournament go, Sarah? It's the first event you participate
It's
to,
my
right?
first ever tournament. Before this, I had played 5 games, so it's the first army I've ever built. Overall, it was great. People were really kind. It was a good group of players. My first round opponent in particular was so lovely, and it just so happened that the person who won the tournament was seated next to me for the first 2 games, and so he would answer all of our questions. So people were great.
Handy.
2 things. Well, one thing I did expect, one thing I didn't expect. We had about an hour for each game, and as expected, I was just too slow. As a new player, I spend a lot of time trying to figure out how to position. I have a very shooty army. That takes time, so I need to work on my time management. And one thing that I didn't expect that was a factor is all of the ambient noise. When there's so many other tournament games happening around you and so many other players, you're thinking hard thoughts about what choices to make while overhearing lots of chatter, and that part was awesome. It was a great environment, but it was really tiring. I feel like today I woke up feeling hungover, and I didn't drink yesterday.
No, it's always a lot. And also by game 3, your brain is already melting, and it's harder to make good decisions or figure out how things work.
Absolutely.
And so on.
And it's it's hundreds and hundreds of little social interactions with lots of different people as well, which is exhausting.
It is.
And it's 3 times of a new dynamic with somebody,
Exactly.
and people are different, and
Totally.
but everyone was. I mean, we had a very much we're here to have fun and make friends, and I think I ran that down people's throats fairly aggressively.
Yeah.
But it was, we want it to be as welcoming as possible for people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it
was
definitely
great.
was. I mean, the tables were also quite nice. I think all of the terrain was your terrain, right?
It was, buddy.
Pretty
It
much,
was.
yeah.
It was. No,
It worked
all of
really
it was. Yeah.
And thematically, it was very on point. The ice tables had icy terrain, and the kind of desert tables had these big desert plateaus. It was really cool.
Yes.
Big stone
And we had
formations,
actually thought of that in advance, and okay, we don't actually have any non-grassy hills. Okay, let's get that sorted. Because I know it sounds silly, but little things like that do actually make a difference to the experience, don't they?
Yeah.
If you have a lava map and then you've got sort of wooded hills, you're like,
No, it looks really
it
weird.
looks silly, it looks a
No,
bit
all
silly.
of the tables were quite nice in that regard. So
We're playing in a crazy fantasy world, but still, you have to. There has to be some kind of logic at play, right? Even if it's not the logic of our world, there has to. It has to make some level sense.
I mean, I played also a couple of games on the desert tables with the terrain crate 3 trees, and they worked really well. Like the way you painted them, it looked really nice.
It was awesome.
Thanks, buddy.
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
really cool.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My favorite game was game 2. We were 2 Northern Alliance players on the icy table, and it just looked really cool.
Fantastic.
Incidentally, table 1,
Incidentally,
because for
table
game
1.
2 you were basically almost on
seed.
the top seats.
And also, incidentally, the 2 women players at the top table for game 2, which was also really
That was
fun.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was great.
I had 2 crowning achievements at this tournament. The first was beating my husband. I came in 7th, he came in 8th.
Correct. I'm such a gentleman.
The preface for this is we did practice games at home before the tournament where he crushed me 3 out of the 4. So he helped me. And then, but I did beat you this tournament, and I just want that to be on the pod.
Indirectly, yes.
It's official.
Yes. That can never be taken away
It can never
from
be
you.
taken away from me. The second crowning achievement is my army won best painted for a newbie, and that was awesome.
Yeah.
Yes,
Deserving.
yes, and JD was the painting judge.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that was really nice. But obviously, we really wanted. I mean, I think about this a lot, right? So if someone that wins lots of tournaments goes and gets even a mega army box or something like a massive box, if you give that to a new player, that's incredible.
Yeah.
But if you give it to someone, well, I already have 10 of those sitting on
Yeah.
the...
I'll just put
you
it
know,
on the shelf
I'll put-
somewhere.
exactly.
Or I'll throw it on
It's
eBay
another
or-
one.
yeah.
Exactly.
Oh,
So
that's a big
we
deal.
wanted to make sure that, there was something there for everybody and everyone
really
had a
nice.
chance of winning. And we raffle out some Mantic vouchers as well.
Yeah.
So thank you to
Which
Mantic
was
for sending us that.
Yeah.
How did it work, guys, with the... so we were playing on 6x4 tables, but for kind of space reasons, to be honest, I just put down like an MDF divider down
Right.
the middle. So really we were playing on 3x4 tables for 750 ambush. Did we feel that was enough space?
To me, yeah, it's
Yeah.
perfectly fine. I think 750 on even 3x3 also works really well, and so 6x4 just gives you a bit
Yeah.
more space for deployment, but that also works just fine. Depends on the density of terrain also a little bit, and the scenario that you play.
Did
but
you have
to me, it
enough
works well.
personal space as well? Didn't feel too cramped?
No, that part was great.
Yeah,
For
with chairs and everything.
Raise
so-
and Protect, where you would place the objective markers, it ended up being you didn't have a lot of choice because the tables were smaller.
Yeah, I mean,
But otherwise, I thought it was great.
yeah.
So we played 3 scenarios. So we
Yeah.
played Dominate,
Yeah.
and then we played Raise and Protect, which is one of those which I think, in hindsight, I think maybe that was not a mistake, but I probably would have picked another one in hindsight. It's when you know it, it's
Yeah.
simple,
Yeah.
but to explain it, it's quite complicated
It takes a
of
bit
the
more
whole.
effort.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can only burn the ones on your opponent's side of the board.
Yeah.
But you
and
still
then
score the ones on
score-
your side at the
At the
end.
end,
Exactly,
right.
exactly.
I liked it though. I thought you had chose 3 good scenarios, and then the third was the giant, and
Yes.
they each had different strategies, and I liked that a lot. It wasn't just
Great.
try to kill as many people as you can. It's actually think about what's the purpose of the game.
Fantastic,
Yeah,
great.
No, that's definitely true.
Because we were hoping to showcase, King's different aspects of King's War. But to be fair, I mean, Andrew did a lot of playtesting, and he got other people to playtest the giant scenario because that was kind of tweaked a little bit.
Yeah.
So he put a lot of thought and work into that, and I think it really showed.
Yeah.
It was a little bit complicated to explain, but I think people hopefully had a lot of fun.
No, it still worked out. It was funny to see a whole collection of giants. There was a good set of people brought their own giants, and there were all sorts of them,
Yeah.
like the different Mantic giants and some other companies. Like
Yeah, on my table we had the halfling iron pig thing,
Right,
That was cool.
What's it called?
iron
Yeah, Iron
beast
Pig
or something.
Might be an iron beast, but it's like a pig.
Yeah,
or elephant.
giant metal pig thing.
Yeah, something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
It's a cool model.
How
Yeah.
did it work in your games with the giant? Did the giant actually attack anybody?
No, so in my game 3 I played with Alex,
Uh-huh.
a really nice guy by the way.
Yeah.
I was really happy to meet him, and we both had quite a bunch of shooting. So my ogres list had 2 regiments of boomers, and he had Force of the Abyss with 1 regiment of flame bearers and 1 warlock and a fiend. So a bunch of shooting ultimately, and so we just shut him down.
Yeah.
I think turn 2 the giant just died. So he managed to the giant managed to move 5 inches to the side, but then was just shut down, and then we just rushed for the gold.
And
that
who
we-
got the gold?
I got the gold. So he killed the giant.
Yeah.
And then I sacrificed some boomers to just run over the gold to block him from picking it up.
Yeah.
And then I picked it up, and then he killed the unit that picked it up, and then I killed the unit that, like, we have
Right,
a bit of
right,
back and
right.
forth around it. But yeah, it went to the very end. Was really on the edge of who would get it in the end. But yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So that part was fun.
Really cool.
Yeah.
I could charge the giant on turn 1,
Oh.
and I double charged it with my 2 worm riders, and we wavered it, and then
Nice.
next round we got really unlucky with some attacks, and my opponent could charge in with his 1 cavalry. And he only did 1 attack to it, but of course that was the attack
Wow.
that took it and killed the giant.
You're welcome.
But then I flanked that and killed it straight away. And I think up to turn 5, I was in a really strong position. I managed to move right up the table,
Yeah.
killed quite a lot of his stuff. But then he still had 2 regiments of shooters left. I think they're
Yeah.
called Decimators or something, the Abyssal Dwarf.
Yes.
And he
Yeah.
played really, really well with the shooting. And crucially, he wavered a key unit, so I couldn't charge.
Oh, God.
And if I'd have charged, he was done.
he was
He was done, but I couldn't, and
Yeah.
and he wore me down, and I eventually, I think for turn 5 or 6, I lost the token,
Yeah.
and I couldn't couldn't get it back.
Yeah.
But it was a really fun, interesting game where I was actually very confident, even when I didn't get the victory point for killing the giant. I was like, I've still got this.
Yeah.
And then sort of turn 6 or 7, it was like, oh.
Oops.
I mean, that's usually the case with Ambush 750, right? Like every single fight is crucial, and so if you have a bit of a spike, then it can change the outcome a bit more.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of averages things a bit more when you're turning with 300 points.
Yes, and that was the feedback I had from a few players, was that at 750, as you said, Clem, one key dice roll might win the game in a way that 2,300 points doesn't necessarily.
Yeah. It doesn't feel as much, but
as well, the game is also that you play for an hour, and then whether you got good luck or bad luck, then you're playing another game, and I've forgotten about. To be honest, because you move on so quickly.
You also had the case, Sarah, right? Like a unlucky waiver against your birds in your game too, didn't you say?
It was game 2. It wasn't my birds. It was against my pack hunters. The first turn, it was pack hunters shooting pack hunters. This was the Northern Alliance game. And they rolled 12 dice, and they had to hit on 6s because moved with cover. Rolled
and they're
3
stealthy
6s.
as well, I think.
Yeah, mine are stealthy, and so she rolled 3 6s, and then they had to be 4+2 damage, and all 3 were 4+, and then she rolled 2 9s in a row, and all of a sudden I was wavered on turn 1, and my pack hunters couldn't do anything. I mean, it happens, and it was exciting to see it play out. Yeah.
The thing is, when the dice go like that, you look like a really good player. And then you realise... And I had a couple of rolls where it just I think I had to get 5s or something. Yeah. And I did like 7 wounds or something, and it was like, oh, this game's easy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, that was our experience also when we played at home, right? Like you said, I crushed you a few times, and that's true, but my dice were extremely hot and it was very cold.
And then the last game we played, my dice were hot. It's so fun when your dice are hitting. You just feel like the
I'm a genius!
The queen of the world. Everything's going my way. I'm such a great player, and then you're like, oh, this is statistically unlikely.
Yeah.
And on the flip side, though, when you're on the receiving end of it, and you're having bad dice, and they're having good dice, you sit there, and it kind of makes you feel better. Like, it feels rotten, but you're like, well, at least it's not something I'm doing wrong. That's just how the cookie crumbled.
It's a good name for an autobiography. Statistically unlikely.
But
no, exactly. Oh, sure. Hindered charge in the front. I've taken your unit off in 1. No, I'm sure this game is easy, right? Exactly. So I was the ringer, which I was pleased actually. So round 1, I was available to ask questions, and frankly, I didn't really know what to do with myself. So I was kind of hovering around people, going, "Oh, what's going on?" But it was quite. There were a few questions round 1, but then we had a dropout. So then rounds 2 and 3 I played, and I had one bit I was particularly proud of, where my opponent, who's a very, very good opponent called Sebastian, who goes to the German GTs, he's a good player, and he had some of the Defence 6, I think they're Obsidian Golems for the Abyssal Dwarves, and and my hammer units have only got Crush 1, so I was like, what am I going to do here?
Yeah.
And I got my knuck around, and I had a plan that 3 turns in the making. Got my knucker around,
all the time,
put the knucker on this tiny little hill it just fit on, and got it in the rear. So I got 15 attacks, and defense 6. So it's hitting on 3s with Pathfinder. So 3 stay 3s, and then
throws 1 from the hill.
Yes. So yes, Crush 1, Thunder 1, and then Thunder 2 from the hill.
Wow.
So defense 6 becomes 3s, and I one-shotted it, and that felt really sweet. Because it was. The dice were quite lucky, but I feel in that situation I kind of deserved the luck because I'd put the work in,
position it properly. Yeah.
Exactly,
I mean,
exactly.
The knucker does that type of thing, right? That's a real threat.
Yeah, exactly. Because otherwise, it's only got 5 attacks.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, but nimble, quite fast, small base, just
exactly.
Awesome.
Yeah, exactly. Being so fast, exactly with nimble, that's crucial, isn't it?
Yeah.
But that felt really good. Yeah. I just have a good time playing my Trident Realm, to be honest, whether it's competitive or not. So I played as the ringer, and I got I played 3 games. So I played 1 game after the event as well, and I got 2 draws and a loss. Mm-hmm. But to be honest, any of those 3 games I could have won. Yeah. It was really, it came down to a couple of dice rolls or something.
Yeah.
And I played well in those 3 games. I'm happy with how I played, and it's like, I just didn't, the luck didn't quite go for me.
Yeah.
So yeah, I had a great time, and I always find draws are actually the most fun games because they're the ones which are the closest, obviously.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah.
It was fun. The head table for the third game, they had a really close game, and it came down to it at the end, and that was cool to see too. The top 2 players in the tournament duking it out until the last dice roll.
Yeah.
It's fun to watch.
Yeah, I mean, it's again, we say it over and over again, it's a good sign for the game, I think, right? The state of the balance and it's pretty good.
Yeah, in a way, I'm not that excited about 4th edition because it feels like the game's in a really good spot at the moment. It doesn't feel like
it really needs it desperately, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the armies we had a widespread of armies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I don't think anyone took anything because they thought, this army is really overpowered or anything. It's just people just took what they thought was cool.
Yeah.
Stefan I played a game with Stefan after the tournament, who's a super, super nice guy. Lovely to finally meet him in person.
Yeah.
And he played a really kind of interesting glass hammer list where his stuff's all really scary and hitty, but it's all sort of defense 3 or 4, and so it dies really, really quickly.
Yeah.
And it was a really interesting game. And I was ahead in that game, but I could not kill the Cavern Dweller.
That's who I played game 3.
Yes.
That Cavern Dweller. It has ridiculously high nerve.
Yes.
And that thing was rough.
And because I think it's super swingy, so it's 6 attacks plus D6 attacks, and then the 2 key fights, he rolled a 5 and a 6.
Same.
And if you roll a 1, it's totally different. And it's got life leech 2 or 3 or something.
Yeah.
So
and it regenerates.
Yeah, life leech. So it's like a vampire.
Sorry,
it sort of like eats bits.
Yeah, that I didn't read his list closely enough before the game, and so I didn't understand that there would be this happening, and so I spread my fire because with Northern Alliance, and this was the giant one where you're trying to kill the giant. I killed the giant, then you want the gold. You want to take the gold to your opponent's other half. I just tried to slow him down so I could get more turns of shooting because I have a shooty list. So I spread my fire so that I could freeze everybody, and then they have -1 movement, but then spreading fire on units that regenerate or have a life leech, not a good idea.
Right.
And the first time he rolled to regen, I was like, you can do that? And then it was my mistake for not reading the list. So I learned some things.
Yeah. I think as a general rule, you do want to just kill things, don't you, with shooting? If you can kill one thing a turn, it's successful.
Fire. Yeah.
Because I felt the shooter, because I played against 2 Abyssal Dwarf lists, and they both had quite a lot of the Decimators and those piercing 1 attacks, and they do every round they do probably like 3 wounds each, something like that.
Yeah.
Even against my Placoderms, so they both times they managed to kill my Placoderms, which doesn't happen that often actually.
Yeah, no, they're good shooters.
So it feels fair, but it just adds up, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Just
That's right.
particularly if you're trying to stand on a point or something, defend something or something like that.
I mean, as a player with usually regen, like with the Forces of the Abyss, I can tell you that usually regen doesn't work when you need it.
Yes, exactly.
You regen when you don't really need that much, and then you're like, okay, come on, please, I have 5 wounds, I need to get 3 back, and then none. It's like,
Exactly. I had the same thing yesterday.
It's always stressful.
I had 5 wounds in a crucial time. Rolled, I got 1 back.
It's like I need it.
The Cavern Dwellers
The
Cavern Dwellers coming. Yeah, exactly.
I liked that overall everybody was really kind. Everybody was really helpful. Like, people would pause their games to answer questions, and there wasn't big fighting about the rules. And I've heard both of you say before that that's part of what this gaming system attracts, because the rules are streamlined. You have people who come who don't want to fight about rules, they just want to have fun. And that was very much my experience at this tournament.
I think it's not as exploitable as other games.
Yeah.
Because in other games, there's kind of things which are kind of a grey area, or things that rules were clearly, as they're written, they say one thing. They were clearly never intended to do that.
Yeah.
But if you read the rules literally, then people can argue, rules lawyers can go, you see, I'm doing exactly what it's...
Or also the way rules are released, right? If it's released in a book that costs 35 euros for a different army, you will not buy every single book for 35 or whatever they sell those army books.
Yeah.
And then you play, I had the case several times, right? You play a game against a new army or someone new, and then you think, this is what the table looks like, this is what I can do and what can happen. Mm-hmm. And the next one is like, aha, you didn't know, but my unit there can do this, and therefore I just destroy you.
And you
out
would
of,
have
you
had
had
no
no
idea.
idea.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's like,
Yeah,
okay, so I didn't have this information.
exactly.
And also,
Feels
do I
bad
have
when you
to
lose
ask
like that.
that
Feels
person
really
for
bad.
the book to read it? Because that
Exactly.
sounds kind of overpowered.
Playing
Yes.
a board game with a 6-year-old who changes the rules.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
literally, sometimes it exactly
But
is
it's,
like that.
in Kings of War, everyone has the Frozen special rule. You
Yeah.
know what the
Yeah,
Frozen
you know,
special
and
rule
it's
is.
on there,
And it's
yeah.
all in the same book, or it's all in the app.
Yeah.
We have access to all the information.
Yeah.
Whereas in Warhammer games, they're all called. There's probably 5 different expressions for basically
The same rule. Yeah.
So someone will say,
With
"I've-
small variants,
in my book,
phrasing is different,
Yes,
and so
yes.
it breaks differently, and
Yeah.
there's always...
someone will so you're playing a game and you think
Yeah.
you've won in turn 6 or
Yeah.
something, and then someone will go, aha, I had a special rule called the Foot of Mork,
Yeah.
and I roll a dice, and on a 2 up all your units are dead.
Yeah, exactly.
And you go, can you show, but then you're faced with an awkward social situation
Yes.
of, do I basically call you a liar
Right.
and ask to see it?
Right.
But also, you're in a tournament, you're in a
Right,
situation.
right.
Do you really want someone to hand you a book so you can read this
Exactly.
section they show you?
Exactly.
And
then,
you know, they
and
might
then
not show you the
understand
right
the rule
section.
differently, and then ask for a TO to come over and make a ruling.
Exactly, and then the moment you ask, it feels there's bad feeling
Yeah,
because
that's
they
right.
feel like, oh, you
That's
didn't
right.
trust me.
That's right.
Yeah.
And if you're on a game clock, then this is also coming out of
Exactly,
time to play.
exactly.
I think
And
we're doing
it's-
There wasn't
GW
that.
bashing
Yeah.
right now.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Are we allowed to shout out Quest Hub?
Big time.
Quest Hub was awesome as the location for the tournament. It was
Cool space.
a really cool space, really cool shop. JD was great. I have only great things to say about them.
It's a good spot.
Yes, JD is a super nice guy, and he's American but with German grandparents.
Yeah.
Oh.
So he speaks fluent German,
Yeah.
But is very southern with his sort of hospitality.
It was
and-
fun to have country
I loved
music.
it. We were listening to country on the radio at the beginning, and these are the songs that I grew up listening to. I felt very at home as a Kansas.
But he also smokes a pipe,
It's great.
plays the
It's
bagpipes.
wonderful. It's perfect.
He's just a really cool
It was
guy.
great.
He's
It's
a
a
really
good
cool guy.
talk. Yeah.
And I have to keep asking him repeatedly, like, if we do something annoying, please tell me.
Yeah.
Because he's so nice that
Yeah.
he's like, oh, sure, Chris, you
Yeah.
can move into my house. That's
Yeah. This is also where some of the cultural norms of Southern American kindness that, especially in Germany, people might not understand. Is
Yeah.
when a barrier
yeah,
is or the
exactly,
line is being
exactly.
drawn,
Yes, exactly. It's like if you work in, if you work for a private company in the UK, and you're really cross with somebody,
Yeah.
you'll say, instead of saying kind regards,
Yeah.
you'll change it to regards,
Regards, right.
and that is
Exactly.
you are going to hell. That is you
Yeah.
are the worst.
And the Germans would be take that very literally, oh, they're
Yes.
sending their regards.
Exactly,
No,
precisely,
My
yeah.
colleagues at work are always you're so nice. And I'm like, that's just because you have no idea when I'm furious how I express it.
Yeah, the nicer you get.
Then we have a problem. If I thank you 4 times in the span of 1 minute, we have issues.
Right.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Chris.
Thank
No,
you.
seriously.
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you
you.
so
Yeah.
much.
Exactly.
So, Chris, what's your experience also as a TO? Because that's, I think, the first time you guys organize an actual event, bringing in people from far away, posting on T3.
Did feel well, Andrew did a lot of the actual admin stuff.
Yeah,
Which,
and also, what are the plans for the next one? What's your learnings from
Well,
it?
I think for me, to be honest, I was quite stressed at times, and thank goodness I had Andrew and Lucas to help. But and to be honest, they did a lot of it. But for me, I was just nervous people wouldn't have a good time. I felt like we were asking for money. Okay, €6, but still, we were asking for money, and I felt like we had a real obligation for people to have a nice time, and hopefully we achieved that.
Yes.
There were some things that went wrong. I think some of them were avoidable. And I think we can learn from that. But I think ultimately, I really think we're kind of onto something, really, in terms of the community we have and the enthusiasm people had, and that's really important. I enjoyed it, quite honestly. I think the 3 of us are pretty exhausted today.
Yeah. That's
But that's just part of it, isn't it? And I think, I just hope everyone went home and,
with a
sort of
smile.
said, I had a really
Good
good time playing this silly little tabletop game.
I think they do.
So there will be another edition of this? Or?
Yes, I think so. So my friend Andrew, who did put so much into this one, he's with sort of work-life balancey type home balance. He finds it very, very difficult to find time on weekends. So he's already said, I'm happy to help do the prep, but I won't be available again on a Saturday.
Right.
But I've already said, hey, Lucas, I need a wingman. And when I say wingman, basically I'm the sort of face of it.
I'm the hype guy.
I want all the credit, and then you do all the work. And I think that's fair. And yes,
Sounds reasonable.
But there was a couple of situations where, like, for example, and I was like to Andrew, it's like, okay, now come on, we got to tell everyone what's going on. And he's like, I did it all in the app, and I said, yeah, but no one's paying attention to me.
But you do have an important labor, which is that you make everybody feel really good about themselves.
Oh,
you talk people up,
you.
And so you were doing that to the other people who were helping organize. You were making them feel really good about the labor they were doing.
Oh, bless you.
Yeah, the social glue is important.
It is an important thing. Yeah.
And what about you, Sarah, for your next tournament or next event? What's your takeaway from this one, or what you want to do for the next one? Like, what do you have in mind? What's your...
It was fun. I think I need to get better on time management. I need to learn how to play faster. I'm still not ready to sign up for a full tournament of 2,300 points.
Hi, this is Alessio Cavatore, and you're listening to the Mantic Universe podcast. So many universes, so little time.
Hey everybody, this is Mike Rossi, Wingdissar's second best dwarf author, and you're listening to the Mantic Universe podcast.
That seems just so exhausting.
I mean, 3 games, 2,300 points in a day.
Exactly.
And then a second day.
Or a GT with 2 days is even worse.
Game.
But already...
It's you get through it because you have to, but it's. I mean, I'll be honest. The last game of the last UK GT, I was playing against a really good Spanish player, and I apologised to him about 20 times because I didn't give him a good game. I was fried. I was fried.
Exactly.
I was doing weird stuff, and I just didn't give him a good game. And there is that kind of social contract, isn't there? You feel that that was a game, just a game too far. So
yeah. So I'm not ready to sign up for that yet. For me, I mean, playing was really fun, but the social parts of seeing, like, the Stuttgart community that came, they have a really close-knit gaming group. It merged them with the Frankfurt, like, seeing you all here, and you're a closely knit community. Clem and I came in from Berlin, so it was the mixing of different gaming communities that, for me, was really the kind of ultimate joy of this. Yes, I had a lot of fun playing, but it's the part of why I do this is for the community. And so my goal would be to find another tournament that's really focused on bringing people together for the community building aspect.
I think this is the crucial point where we are in Germany at the moment. I think this is the most important point is we have, some groups of people playing Kings of War,
privately
staying in their little bubble, which is fine.
Yeah.
But the whole thing is just so much better if we all get together and play and build those connections.
If you have opportunities like once a month or whatever, you don't have to go to every single one of them, but at least if you want to, you can travel over for the weekend, a couple of hours or a bit more, and then you go meet up with different people. Yeah.
So maybe not this year, but Clem has pointed out a couple times that there's an awesome community in Poland, and so we've talked about going over
to Warsaw. So there's a big GT in June. I'll probably go to this one, but for you said it's still too much.
So I'm focused on tournaments that are about building community. That's my goal for the next one.
That sounds great. And guys, probably we should have... So we played an hour, which was very tight.
Yeah.
For next time, would you say an hour and 10 minutes?
I think with all the time for setup and explanations and taking your stuff from one table to the other, an hour and a half is probably the best. Like, you just put it in the schedule. Because if you look at it, we said we'd start at 2, but we actually started at 2:30 for technical difficulties. And so if you schedule for just 1 hour and then you have half an hour of technical difficulties, then suddenly you have 30 minutes for your schedule.
Just a bit more redundancy.
If you just say it's an hour and a half for every single game, at 1 hour and 15 minutes, we give a ring to everyone finish the turn you're playing now, but
Exactly.
this is the last turn.
I did feel guilty at times because I was playing
Then-
for 2 of the games and I couldn't really go round
Yeah.
because I was playing my game, right? So I
Yeah.
couldn't go round and go, guys,
Yeah.
sorry, you've got 10
Yeah.
minutes left. It would have been brilliant
Yeah.
because a couple of games I basically came around and said, guys, you've got 5 minutes left
Or stop now.
or
Yeah.
stop now.
Yeah.
At times it was like, sorry, guys,
A
you've
bit
run
of
out
clarity
time.
like this, I think,
Yeah.
is good for everyone. But
Agree.
in general, I think being kind of pessimistic in how long things will take, and so say it's just an hour and a half, even if you aim to actually have 1 hour of play,
Right,
is actually not a bad thing because it gives you some margin for things that go wrong,
right.
or the bathroom breaks, or whatever it is.
People can
And
just
then-
have a little chat if
Exactly,
there's extra
like-
time.
You
It's
don't
not,
need to
go
it's
back
not
to back to
wasted
back to
time.
back.
Yes,
No, no.
yes,
No,
yes.
So that at
needed
least
that.
you know you're a bit more clear. Okay, we start at 2. That means at 3:30 we can start game 2.
That's right.
And that's it,
And
right?
after a game, you really want to talk. If you've had a good game or
You
a
wanna
bad game,
chat.
you want to talk to. You want to tell
Yeah.
someone, "Oh,
Yeah.
double
You
one
wanna-
at the worst time."
Chat.
You want to get it out.
Go to the bathroom, get a drink, and get some fresh air.
Yes.
And so I would say an hour and a half with built-in time, maybe only an hour 15 is actual playing. And then I also would make very clear in advance, okay, if you run out of time, you'll get a 5-minute warning or a 10-minute warning, and then the rule is you finish this turn and the game stops there.
Yeah.
Because there were question marks
I mean-
because we ran out of time over how that works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing I wanted to mention as well is that our friend Fred, who edits the podcast in Oslo, they have something I think called Oslo clocks.
Right.
And
Cool.
see what you think of this idea, Sarah.
Yeah.
It's basically when you run out of time.
Yeah.
This is when you're playing on a clock, right? So
Yeah.
you time out 0.
Yeah.
Normally in a tournament, that's dice down. You can't do
Yeah.
anything else. Oslo clocks. What they say is, okay, just play. Okay, so this is your turn. You can of the different phases, movement, shooting or fighting.
Yeah.
You can do one of
Oh,
those
interesting.
and play it out in full, no pressure. Like
Yeah.
take your time, so you
Yeah.
can do all your fighting, but only your fighting, or
Yeah.
all your movement, or all
Only-
your shooting,
yeah.
and then you're finished.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not like, because actually it's pretty brutal when it's like, no,
Yeah.
you're timed out, stop. So
Yeah.
just giving you have to pick, and it's
Yeah.
but it gives you a chance maybe.
Yeah.
If you still have your movement, you can get on the objective maybe.
Yeah,
I think that sounds cool.
that sounds reasonable. To me, a lot of people hate the clock, or they feel like it's really a brutal, cruel thing to do.
I love it.
But I think it really adds something to the game because
Yeah.
then it makes things very clear. Like
Time
there's
is a resource
there's an hour
as well.
and
I
15
agree.
minutes.
No,
Yes.
I agree.
Time
and then
is a resource.
everyone has 35 minutes or
That's
so.
right. That's right.
And that's it.
Yeah.
And you use it however you like.
Yes.
And then there's no question about it. And then it's fair.
I
in
would
a way.
Yes.
I would do that. I would have clocks, even though they seem scary. And then, if there's still some kind of issue, make it clear in advance. The rule is finish the turn.
Yeah. Yeah, or do something special.
Because we
like
could,
this, yeah.
if we
Have it
have,
clear.
if we give an hour and a half, we could say 40 minutes each on the clock, or 40,
Yeah.
45
something like
minutes.
that.
Yeah.
That's quite generous
Yeah.
for.
Yeah,
Would-
and it doesn't sound like much, but actually, the first time that you play with the clock, it's extremely stressful.
Yeah.
And you most likely will time out.
Yeah.
But then the second time, you kind of learn how to manage it a bit better. And I think
Yeah.
for me as a player, it helped me to get better with things because instead of losing time in, how are my dice and counting and everything, you realize, oh no, I have 12 attacks with most of my units, I have 12 dice. And then I don't have to count them. I'll
Exactly.
visually check,
Exactly.
Yeah.
or I have 12 red dice, and
Yeah.
these are the things I roll.
Yeah.
And
Things
these
like
save
this
time.
make such
Yeah.
a difference.
And it makes you, even later when you play without the clock, it makes it a lot more enjoyable because you
That's
are
right.
more efficient in
Yes,
a way.
definitely. And my friend Chris had a big issue with this because he went to Clash of Kings last year. So he's my friend. We've been friends since we
Yeah.
were 8, and he came along having played I think a couple of games of Ambush with me
Right,
years
yeah.
ago.
Yeah.
And he did his 2,300 points in Northern Alliance and came along, haven't played a test game or anything.
Wow.
And the thing with the clock he found was that the thing he realised, and I think it's a great point, is when you're on the clock, you have to. The thing to do is do all your thinking on your opponent's turn
Yes.
Right.
as they're moving,
Yes.
so you have
Yes.
a clear idea, really,
Yes.
Yeah.
of basically what you want to do when they
That's
stop
smart.
doing. But the trouble is, when you don't really know what you're doing, what like Chris didn't,
Yeah.
you spend ages to
Thinking.
do stuff,
Yeah.
which means your opponent has loads of time to think for their turn.
that
So
makes
their
a lot
turn
of
is
sense.
very quick.
That makes a lot of
They
sense.
can do everything
And
very,
then
very
it's like
quickly,
you're on a
and then it's
downward
like, oh, flip,
spiral.
it's back to
Yeah.
me. Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's just having the familiarity with your army the whole thing gets much easier the more experience you get. And as Clem said, great point. Have 10 red dice. If you need 10 red dice a lot, have 12 blue dice.
That's
if you
right.
And
it just
all the things,
because it
Makes a lot of
takes
sense.
off the mental load of if every time
Absolutely.
you're counting out dice.
does
No,
make
I'm
sense.
just picking up the
That
10 red
makes
dice,
sense.
chuck them.
We did practice games at home of each scenario, and I'm so glad we did, because we would spend like 30 minutes at the beginning being like, okay, wait, what's the scenario? How do we set up?
Exactly.
And so having done all of that already to come into the tournament without
Yeah.
having to do it, I still struggled with time management, but that was
It
huge
helps
to be
already.
able to do that already.
It just makes it less stressful.
Yeah.
It takes off that horrible what's going on.
Yeah.
And I find sometimes actually me and my opponent play a scenario a bit wrong.
Yeah.
Like we've misunderstood something.
Yeah.
But as long as the two of you are playing
Yeah.
it a bit wrong together,
That's
it's
right. It
fine.
works. Yeah.
It's just if one of you is playing it right and one of you is misunderstood, then you've got problems at the
Yeah.
end, because it can feel bad when
That's
you're like,
right.
oh, but I thought I'd won.
Exactly.
Or
Yeah.
in extreme cases, but you know,
Yeah.
so.
No, that's right.
But yeah,
Yeah,
there we go. So,
nice.
and what do you guys think about 750 points of ambush?
I think it's a really good size, because there is enough diversity in a way. Like you can do different things, right? Like it doesn't feel too constraints of 500 points. I think is slightly too small.
Yeah, me too.
1,000 points is nice, but very quickly you can bring a bit more filth in 1,000 points. Like you fit one more giant,
Right.
or you fit one very nasty regiment is worth 245 points, like just under the maximum.
And then the opponent likely doesn't have anything that can really
Yeah,
counter
so-
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's really the nice. It's a nice amount of stuff that it makes very interesting games without being too much, and also in how much you need to get ready for an army. I think it's the right level. Like it's about an army box plus maybe one or two things on the side.
Yeah.
I think it's the perfect thing for a beginner. I mean, Sarah, it's the first army that you've built, right? And
It's my first ever army. I've only played 750 point games.
Award-winning
so I don't
army.
have a point of, my award-winning army. Thank you, famous. I don't have a point of comparison, but I love it. As we said, one bad dice roll or a couple bad dice rolls makes a big difference. But it's also a dice game, and that's
Right.
okay. That's
It
how
is.
it goes.
And it creates super memorable
It
moments
does,
for good
and
and
you
for
still
bad.
have
It does.
fun,
It does.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And you giggle about it afterwards, so I like it a lot. Yeah, ask me again after I've played a 2,300 point game, but I like the 750, and it also makes the barrier for entry so much lower as a newbie coming in. I know
Yeah.
it feels much less scary. You're committing to less in terms of buying, painting, building, and also just in terms of playing.
Yeah.
And Sarah, this is maybe a topic for another time. But if you let's say, for example, could you articulate? Let's say, for example, if there was another lady who was maybe interested in this,
Yeah.
could you kind of articulate to them of like, actually, this is a really fun thing to do.
Oh, it's
Like,
awesome.
Is there some? Is there?
Make a pitch to the women.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
I can do that. Well,
This is very much putting you on the spot. By
I'm
the way,
not. I'm
Sarah.
okay with that. I didn't advertise it at the army, although I told a few people. To deal with some of my ambivalences about often being the only woman in the room in the gaming community, I have an all-women army, which some people notice when we play and some people don't. And so for me, as I'm putting the units together already, I'm kind of giggling.
Yeah.
I loved at this tournament having another woman in the room, and then she and we didn't get matched together because we were women. We got power matched as the first and second seed.
Because you were the best
And
two
that
players.
was so fun. No, it's a great game if you're crafty, if you're artistic, and a lot of people have this misconception that women aren't competitive. Some women aren't competitive, some men aren't competitive, but Clem can tell you I am a competitive biatch, and many other women are too, and for me that is one of many lovely aspects of this. So great community, it's artistic, there's so many different elements of it, and you can have fun competing. I do think I feel more comfortable sometimes as the only woman in the room being there with my spouse.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, some people treat me better because of this. They think like, oh, she's here with Clem. We know Clem will be nicer
Oh,
to
do you
her.
think so?
I do. I think whether it's true or not, I would have the perception as a woman that coming in as a single woman, I would be a bit more nervous.
Right.
I think 99% of the people I've met through this have been lovely. But that 1% of people who do something snarky or bad or only see you there as like a potential
Date or
or whatever, being there, having them see me as an extension of Clem. Like, I don't like that this is how they see me, but it means they treat me better.
Yeah,
Right.
it's a different thing. I mean, I've had a similar social situation, but in reverse in high school because I was in the theater club. It was like 30 women and my guy friend and I. It's like 2 dudes in a group of 30 people is socially very, very awkward.
Right.
Because even if nobody else cares about it, you feel a lot more, self-aware of every single thing.
And you just,
and it's
just
horribly
look around,
stressful.
just look around the
That's
room
right.
and
you're
go,
like,
oh,
people who don't
should
So-
I
Yeah.
be here?
That's
Am
right.
should
But
I
I think it's
go?
always the diversity question, right? Like the first one is the most difficult, and then second and third and
It
fourth
becomes easier.
becomes
There's-
easier and easier
There's
the more.
studies on this that once you have 10% of the group, it becomes a tipping point and it's easier.
Yeah.
So I think I would like to try to build more community in Berlin with like the Flinte, like women and non-binary players. And I think women who are interested in first getting into the hobby, not only playing with spouses or with dads, like I see a lot of people who are fathers saying my daughter's getting into this, but then find other women, find other non-binary players, find people who make you
Bring a
feel
friend.
comfortable and safe, because it's not fun if you don't feel safe
No.
for any reason.
And you're not going to bring your friends in if you don't feel
No,
safe.
if you don't,
and you're
no.
not going to hang around
Yeah.
yourself, are you? Let's be
And
honest.
so having the community here in Frankfurt, having the community in Berlin that we have are part of why I got into this. The community that we had in France, I felt less welcome.
Yeah.
And so the community
It's a bit
that
of a
you're in
different
also,
vibe,
like,
yeah.
find your group of people who you want to be around, and then that you will feel welcome.
Yeah, ultimately
or
it is
make
what it
your
is.
community,
Exactly.
which is
Yeah.
largely
That's
what
right.
we're doing, right?
But again,
That's
yeah,
right.
bring a couple of friends or like create your own thing. But that's very important. And as you said, plenty of times, like we end up playing games, but ultimately it's also spend a
Yeah.
good time with people you
Yeah.
you enjoy your
And
company. of.
increasingly, over time, it's less and less about the games and more
Yeah.
about friendships, isn't it?
Yeah, the game is one
Right.
thing we do as friends, right?
But
So,
I mean, for a long time, particularly when I was playing in Idstein, trying to get people interested, what I would tend to do is bring friends of mine
Yeah.
to play, and they enjoyed themselves and they had a nice time, but they weren't really interested in doing it themselves, doing the hobby stuff themselves, or doing. And
Yeah.
I think that you've got to get people who also have a passion or an
we'll
interest.
go the whole way.
Yes, of doing their own army. That's such a crucial point.
Yeah.
If people aren't willing to do their own army, they're only going to get into a point, and you can't.
Yeah,
you don't
no,
really
it goes
get-
only so far, right? I mean,
Exactly.
but I think that was also a tipping point for you and I, Sarah, because at some point you told me, "Hey, make me an army," right?
I did.
And I've never wanted to do it because I thought this will be my army that she borrows. And as
Exactly.
you just said, Chris, I think
Yeah.
creates a complete different relationship to it. Versus now, this is your army that you
Yeah.
built the way you like. I mean, I helped you with the list initially, but you've
no,
changed
but
the list.
I made it.
And
yeah.
you made it exactly how you like it,
Yeah.
or maybe you want to do it differently for the next one or
Yeah.
expansion of it.
Yeah.
But this is yours,
Yeah, that's
and
right.
I get detached from it, and you
Yeah.
own it in a
Yeah.
way, like all sense of the term, and I think
Yeah.
it makes a big difference.
And
Yeah.
everyone, that I think there was one person who didn't have a painted army, and that's my friend Caleb, because he had to go abroad for weeks on end,
Yeah.
unexpectedly for work,
Yeah.
and he didn't get a chance, which was a shame. What I loved was on his phoenix, he had a mantic phoenix, and like just the tip of a wing,
The tip of
he
a wing
painted
painted.
yellow.
Yeah.
It was like, did you?
I
I
tried.
love it. I love it.
It's three colors.
painting
so
a
it's
wall,
yellow,
and then just-
white, and black.
So right, it's the 3-colour base.
Yeah.
But he actually, when I got home, he'd sent me a message saying, I'm even more motivated to do this now. But to be fair, me and Caleb play a load of different game systems together.
Right.
Yeah.
So we play Antares together. We play Dread. We're playing a Dread campaign
Yeah,
together.
that's
Yeah.
really fun.
I think we're also going to play Mythic Americas together. And then outside of playing with me, he also plays 30K. He
Yeah.
plays Lord
Right.
of the Rings,
Yeah.
and I think
All
he
the
plays
things.
other games
Yeah,
too,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
So he's got a lot of stuff going on, but I think he was very much planning on having a painting. And then actually, at one point, because he's built 2 Kings of War armies for
Right.
750 points, and he wasn't sure which one to do.
Yeah.
I think it was Green Lady and Forces of Nature or something like that.
Right.
And at one point, it looked like he was getting them both done, and then he'd decide which one he wanted, and then life conspired against him.
Yeah.
So he
Happens.
fully planned to get it
does happen.
done, and it just didn't happen. But how great was it that everything was painted, everything
was
looked
awesome.
great.
Yeah.
Really nice
But
armies.
with that said, it's also nice that you had armies on loan for people who just knowing
Wanna
that you
give it a
have
try,
that
yeah.
option,
Yeah.
then you can sign up for the tournament, say if my army's not done, I can borrow one, and cool, if my army's done, I'll bring my own.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I think
And
that's
if
a
it's
good
not
lesson.
painted, it's not the end of the world, right? This is
Yeah, of course.
it's a journey we're all on, isn't
It
it?
is.
It's. I think Clem said many times it's kind of the difference between not yet painted and never painted.
Never painted.
As long as it's
absolutely,
not yet painted,
Yeah,
that's
that's right.
totally cool. you
Yeah,
know?
no, I think it makes a big difference.
And but again, if you're never planning on painting your models or getting it done, just play a computer game. Like,
Yeah.
you know if you're going to miss out so
Or
much
get
on the
them
hobby.
painted by someone, right? You can always get a commission painter, but you miss out on the experience. I think
You
if you
do.
don't do your army, and it doesn't have to be like box art level painted.
Oh, not at all.
It's like there's really a quality of itself just for an army that is fully painted.
And to speak to that a little bit, Sarah, I mean, that must have felt really special. Not only having a painted army, but having such a beautiful painted army,
nice.
as you did, genuinely did, award-winning.
Award-winning.
Oh.
The famous.
Shall we also give a shout out to our good friend Alex, who
Alex
won overall best
overall,
painted,
yeah. Alex had awesome models.
and he's got that done pretty flipping quick. I've got to.
yeah.
Yeah, because he made the right choice initially to play 10mm Kings of War, right? So that's the best way to play the game. And then he had to agree to the barbarian way of doing 28mm
That was-
scale to play with other people.
That was one of
Yeah.
the slightly faintly ridiculous moments of the just behind the curtain a little bit, dear listener, was when talking to JD about the paint scores and everything, and it was like, okay, good. That's a cool idea. We've got this idea of overall best and best new painter. But who qualifies for best new painter? And then we were talking about different players, and it was like, well, they've painted armies in mini scale. So does that mean they're a new painter? Kind of, but not really. And then we were talking about these different edge cases,
Yes.
and which is it sounds like such a lovely idea, but then actually
It's
you
always
know,
a bit difficult, yeah.
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 But I liked we raffled stuff
Yeah,
off.
it was
Yeah.
cool. No,
'Cause
a lot of
everyone
people
had a
went home with
chance.
stuff. Yeah.
Because again, I don't like it when everyone that wins the tournament
Yeah.
walks away with something, particularly when we've made such a point of winning doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then to
Yeah.
say, "Oh, you won, well done. Here's your
Yeah,
30
no.
Yeah.
€30 Mantic
No.
voucher,"
Yeah.
doesn't quite feel right to me. So I think
No.
raffling it off.
Although
was
it's a
just
bit awkward when
fun.
you roll a d20 and you have to reroll it 8 times to
That
get
was
to the
so
number.
funny. That was so funny. 18 again.
Nine-
20
not
again.
19.
Okay.
Who's number 15?
Bear with me,
Go on,
everybody.
okay.
No, you've already won something. Roll again. Yes, but there we go, guys. But it was really. I mean, I can't believe a year ago I couldn't get a game of Kings of War in Frankfurt, and to go from that to and it has been a lot of hard work.
Yeah.
But
There
it
is
is
a gaming
paying
group
off.
now.
Yeah.
There is
There is a
That's
legit.
great.
And to be honest, I mean, we had sort of, we could have had 4 other local players who couldn't make it for various
Yeah,
reasons.
I mean, it's
And
always
actually,
how it is, yeah.
two of them were honestly put off by this sort of idea of a tournament.
Oh well.
And both of them actually, it was Giacomo and Christian.
Oh, they,
Right.
Both of them came to have a look.
yeah.
So I think they've had negative experiences with other game systems tournaments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
okay,
this sort of
that's-
tournaments,
I
they're
can
like,
totally relate,
Yeah.
yes.
But it's interesting that they both turned up
Yeah.
to have a look,
And they played a game after.
and they played a game, and both said, "Actually, next time I think I will
yeah,
come."
and they stayed for dinner.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
No, that makes
There we
sense.
go. And
Yeah.
and funnily enough, somebody said recently that the difference of Kings of War is just how welcoming we all are and how
Yeah.
positive we
Yeah.
all are, and
Absolutely.
that's literally the
think-
best thing
Yeah.
I can
No,
hear,
that's
to be
right.
quite honest, because that's
Yeah.
exactly what we're going for.
There's a bit of both, right? Like the rule system attracts certain type of people, but also that's how word you and I and everyone puts in, right? Like the community is what we make of it.
Exactly,
Like
Clem.
it's a reflection of what we do for it.
And
I think.
it's an ongoing effort
No, it is
to
an ongoing
make
effort,
sure
like, to-
that standards don't slip.
Peek out the people that bring, toxic things to
Well.
it. Kind of. Or trying to, or making it very clear, like,
Just maybe
this
they
will
would
not be
prefer.
tolerated.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly, Clem. Yes,
and kind of
explicitly
setting the
so.
tone. Like,
Yes.
if you try to bring this type of toxic trait, well, we
It's
are
not
not
welcome.
welcoming to it.
Yes,
And we try to maintain a nice, enjoyable environment.
Exactly.
And that takes effort, but yeah.
I have a final question for me. What was the silliest moment of the tournament? I don't mean like, oh, that was a stupid dice roll, but like there was a lot of laughter at the tournament. Did you have any silly moments?
I think in my game 3 there were a few of them, because Alex tried desperately to shoot down my warriors that were all holding the gold.
Yeah.
And there was a bit of a rule question, because the warriors were in the forest and his shooters were also in the forest. And I'm like, oh, do you shoot on 4s or 5s? So we had a bit of a question. I was like, I just find roll it on 4s. That'll be more interesting. And it was very much on the edge, and he needed an 8 to kill them and roll a 7 or something. And just like, just on the to the very last seconds, like he could have made it and actually win the game right there. Yeah. But then he rolls a 7, not an 8, and then another unit can charge in and then murders everything else. That was a fun moment.
I always find it really fun when my Tidal Swarms charges the flank or rear of something, because they're 80 points of like rubbish, but they always get ignored, and I managed to work them all the way around the flank in Game of Invade. And we charged in the flank. We were hindered, so we're hitting on 6s, but with 24 attacks. Yeah. They did 4 wounds.
That's awesome.
Yes, go, you crazy little fish weirdos! And this is
you've ignored the little man.
You've fallen into my trap. 80 points of awesome. Go. So yes, I always enjoy that. I think that's the essence of playing as the Trident Realm. It's just you're just a bunch of weirdos.
I love it.
That's brilliant.
I love it. Oh, that reminds me. One of the other really cool armies was Andrew's. Andrew does like modeling.
Oh yes,
that was so cool.
Yes.
Just really unique.
Yeah, cool little blobs of duties with the Night Stalkers.
With 4 heads and like random arms sticking out. Or there's one unit with just a whole bunch of like circular, like globe-looking blobs on it, and then a head stuck on top. Is really cool.
Yeah, yes, it's kind of like the body horror stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
But in a nice way. Like it's not gore or anything. It looks fun.
Beautifully done, like creepy in a really cool way.
He'll be very happy to hear.
What about your fun moments in the whole tournament, or silly moments, Sarah?
I had a bunch of moments of giggling. Playing against Mariana, we just had a really fun game together. That was the Northern Alliance tournament. This is going to sound awful, but the moment where I almost burst out laughing and had to contain myself was when you and I were sitting next to each other at the end of the tournament, and you said, "Oh, who won?" Like between the two of us, and we pulled up the list, and we were right next to each other. My name was 7th, and your name was 8th, and we both just had to cover our mouths because right then Chris was going to announce things, and we were like elbowing each other and just trying to hold our laughter, and that was really silly. And that's obnoxious of me to say, but we're so competitive. We don't usually play board games against each other at home. We only play collaborative games where we win or lose together.
Very wise.
So this was our moment of being like, "Did you see that?"
Our marriage counsellor said.
Exactly. Sorry, that's annoying, but that was my most joyful moment.
So not to bring it back to it, but I beat Clem in the tournament. If anyone wants to look it up, it's in the Mantic Companion.
It's official.
So anyway, Clem, what was your crushing moment during the tournament? What was the very worst thing that happened?
Very proud that my young Jedi beat
You're a
me.
young Jedi. You're right.
All of my teachings bear fruit.
That's it, Clem. That's it. That was super. So there we go, guys. That was it's always just a lot of fun talking about the fun times, isn't it?
We did.
Yeah,
we said we would make a really fast episode, and we've been giggling for an hour, so it's a success.
That's pretty had fun yesterday.
I guess compared to the 4-hour monthly episodes, that is a really fast
episode.
Well,
everyone just loves the sound of our voice, Clem. I mean, what can I say?
No, this was lovely.
But actually, that is true. That is true, though. That, a number of people did come up and say, "Oh, thanks for making the pod."
Yeah,
it's true.
The pod is a big part of what brought people to this tournament.
We've had, since we started 2 years ago, we've had roughly, getting the data is a bit difficult, roughly about 100,000 different listens.
Amazing.
It's like a massive stadium of people.
It's
right?
awesome.
Well, it's the same people, same 100 people listening 1,000 times.
But even so,
but I'd rather that. I'd rather 100 people
fair.
love what we do than.
Oh, that's fair.
I genuinely would. Yeah, I would.
Community. It's wonderful.
Exactly. That's it.
No, it's fantastic.
On that note, thank you, dear listener. Thanks, Clem. Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you.
So much universe, so little time. Don't know why I said that weird.